Welcome to the Selectmen's Meeting for Tuesday, March 26, 2019. Roll call, please.
Wayne Miller present.
And Sue Licio is present, so I do call the meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would like to announce that the meeting is being tape recorded. Chairman's additions or deletions, can I add that one that we just...
Under correspondence or?
Under, yeah, we can put that under correspondence.
Okay.
I do have one to add under correspondence as well.
I'm adding
Unregistered motor vehicles.
unregistered motor vehicles. Update on one. And what is it that you need, Wayne?
School resource officer update and plan.
Is that correspondence that you have?
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything else? Have no deletions. Public comment period? Yeah.
Do you know about what time you'll be discussing the election for the debt exclusion?
Where is it anyway?
It's
On the second page.
5.2 or something on the 5.1.4.
Yeah.
We can take it now if you want.
Yeah, I'd like to know what's happening
Yeah,
with that.
I met you in the hall and we talked briefly about that the
Yeah,
other day. so-
I have a question though, and it's kind of late for the question, I suppose, but if you knew this was coming down the line, why didn't we do a special town meeting in March so we could get it on the annual election, save $6,000?
Because we weren't ready for it yet. We didn't have the pavement management plan finished yet.
Okay.
We had no idea what the cost would be.
Yeah, you couldn't ask people to do a debt exclusion for an amount you didn't know.
Okay. All right.
And we just have it here. This is the first time we've actually seen the whole thing. We got an update from Jim last week or the week before on what the cost came out to be and how we were going to do the funding. But we just didn't know it until now.
Okay.
Okay. Are you going to be all right? Are you?
Well, I need to know what the date is because I have things happening. I have a conference in June.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I thought that when we talked the other day, you were going to look at how much time was required, when you had to have it. within.
35 days. I need 35 days in order to...
So anytime 35 days or more after town meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
When are you going away? When's your conference?
June 11. So that would be the first week we'd be able to do it.
And I mean, it's setting a potential date. If people.
Only if it passes.
Only if it passes.
Right.
Let's get that point first.
Hmm?
Let's get that
So
point
the
first.
earliest week we could do it is the week of June 10th.
And you're gone that week, though?
But that week I have a conference. If I can't go to the conference, then I can't go to the conference. But, you know, it's nice to
I
be able
don't
to
think,
go.
I don't think there's, well, I mean, there is a hurry in a sense because
The pavement
it's the
season.
summer and it's pavement season, so, but,
One week.
I don't
isn't
think
gonna-
1 week would matter.
Yeah, so the 18th.
So can we potentially set it for the 18th?
So the 18th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So the last date of register to vote then would, oh, I'm going the wrong
Going the way.
place. Wait a minute, hang on. So, 1, 2. So the 30th. So the 18th, yeah, that would probably work the best,
So we'll say potentially
yeah.
June 18th.
When does that need to be known definitively so you can do ballots and,
After the town meeting.
okay, so we have that time?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, as long as I have them about 21 days before the election to mail out to absentee voters, but it takes 10 days or so to order them, so, and I'll need the wording and everything.
Yeah, okay.
So if I can get that ahead of time, that would help.
And we also talked about, because it's in this fiscal year, you'll need to do a transfer or something.
Right, right.
Because we weren't
Is
expecting
there
it.
money available?
It will, yeah.
Not from us.
Well,
Well,
Joe, just bring me up.
but Kathy,
yeah.
Kathy, we have end-of-year transfers too.
Yeah.
I think we have, what do we have?
We
Julie?
have until,
10
we
We're
have,
at 10.
We have 10
Oh,
left in our budget.
well, you better put aside like 6.
It's all work.
But by
Okay,
then,
good.
What's the date, 10?
you all set, Kathy?
May 7th. So,
okay. And Kathy wants to 6.
yeah. I think so.
Okay.
I mean, if there's no money, I don't know what we'll do, but,
Municipal relief transfer.
We have transfers
So
for
you
the
can
end of the
do
year anyway.
interdepartmental transfers.
We have up until
oh,
July
I see what you're saying.
15th,
I get it now.
right?
Okay.
Yep.
So we'll find the money. You'll be the top person on the list for the
Oh,
transfers. How's
wow.
that? Well, it's the first one we've identified a need for, so you're first on the list
Okay,
if that happens, okay?
yep, very good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, appointments. 2.1, nominate for appointment John King as the animal inspector for barn book inspections in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 129, Section 15 and 16, effective May 1st, 2019 to April 30th, 2020.
I move the board appoint John King.
No, it's nominate. I asked that question too. Just
This doesn't sit and flow, right?
FYI, I know. I said, why does it say nominate? Apparently, that general law and how these get appointed is we nominate and the state says yes.
State appoints.
Yes, the state
Okay,
appoints.
sorry. I move the board nominate for appointment John King as the animal inspector for barn book inspections in accordance with Mass General Law 129, Section 15 and 16, effective May 1st, 2019 to April 30th, 2020.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2.2, nominate for appointment Mary Letourneau. I'll let you read it.
I move the board nominate for appointment Mary Letourneau for animal inspector for quarantines in accordance with Mass General Law 129, Section 15 and 16, effective May 1st, 2019 to April 30th, 2020.
I'll second that nomination. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3.1, review, comment, planning board mandatory referral regarding accessory apartment zoning bylaw. They give these to us so that we can comment, but I never know what I would comment even if I were to comment.
I read these several times, and I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
Subtract.
So,
Thank you for your referral.
yes, thank you for your referral.
Gotcha.
Do you send that response?
Yes.
Okay. 3.2, review, comment, planning board mandatory referral, OSPP special permit.
I have the same comment.
Okay. No comment with thanks. Old business, discussion regarding selectmen liaison responsibilities. I want to make sure that there's somebody that people can call or whatever, so I asked this to be on. And we had a little bit of confusion about who had what, because there were several different copies floating around. I remember that the last time we did this, we had trouble finding the original ones, and Carolyn was able to locate that original format.
So which one's which? I forgot to.
I think we're gonna use the top one.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, this is different than the one she sent me. Okay. We did vote on North Middlesex Regional as being under, going to mine,
Correct.
right? So that's gonna move up. Yeah, this is not the one that she sent me. Carolyn later sent me a different one. Okay,
Is this something you can forward from your phone to me and I can print?
no, that's okay. I just want to make sure that they're straight. So North Middlesex Regional, I would like to move to me on the list, because we already voted on that. Is there anything else?
I have all the ones I thought I signed up for.
Yeah, you do. I just, I mean, Cindy hasn't been here, so I just don't, oh, and I've always had library under mine. I don't know why it's here, because, yeah.
Just 'cause
Planning
they're-
board, who gets planning board?
Well, right now, Cindy's still down for planning board.
Those are the electeds. That's why they live down there. So Board of Health, assessors, clerk, planning, library, water.
Yeah, but none of these are consistent, okay? None of the listings, so it doesn't really matter.
You can do it along the lines of the budget. I mean, you have general government, you have public safety, you have culture, and
Can we look at it broken out like that?
Well, I don't want to, it doesn't matter how they're broken out in terms of groupings. I think what matters is that we have somebody to cover everything, so, planning, there isn't anyone. I can take planning, because they've got lots going on. It's just to have a contact if they want a contact on the board, really. We don't have that much longer. I guess that's it. I was concerned because library has always been mine. I've been going to those council on aging as well. I can add planning, and we just did add North Middlesex. We okay with this stuff?
Yeah.
We need a vote on it? Okay,
in the minutes.
okay. Town administrator evaluation discussion. We just, thank you, Jim, for updating that.
Sure.
Jim put the goals as a 9th item on here. I agree with you, Jim, that this isn't the greatest evaluation tool I've ever seen.
Start off.
How do you feel?
I'm not going to argue with you.
Okay, but given the time frame that we have to work in, and I think this ends up being part of the bigger picture of all of the things that we need some help with from a personnel and HR perspective.
Absolutely.
But I think this is adequate. I've done like half of it so
So
far.
we've been functioning under, so.
Yeah.
I've yet to find one I've ever worked with in 30 years.
Well, nothing's gonna be perfect, but I think it could use a little bit more toward goals that were set for a given employee, but.
This is much more behaviors
Yes,
than
it is.
concrete.
It's not goal-based, it's not objective-based as much as it is, It's more subjective, unfortunately, because that makes it difficult, you know? I think you can cite examples when you have a subjective one, but anyway, it'll do for now because we're kind of under the gun on it. It's due to you next Tuesday, so we'll put it on the agenda for next Tuesday. The question is, do we want to each give him our evaluation separately and then ask someone to compile them?
Yes.
You want to do it like that? Okay. So I'm not quite done with mine yet. I've been working at it. I'm just not quite done. So we can each just make an appointment with you.
Just let me know.
Okay.
I'll be here next
Prior
week, so.
to Tuesday. Okay, all right. And then it'll get summarized. I had asked, Adam's not still here, is he?
I do not know. Kate had said that she would do it, though.
Oh, did she? I didn't get an answer back.
No, she had said that she actually just did it for another community.
Oh, wonderful.
Ever since that
Okay.
Division of Open Government case came down.
Oh, excellent, okay. I saw an email, but I didn't see that she had responded to that, so good, all right. So when we're done, we'll just pop them off to Kate, and Kate can put them together, okay?
So if I understand it correctly,
Yep,
complete review with Jim
yeah,
individually, Kate to compile this so we don't violate open meeting law.
Right.
that's correct.
And the compiled one then goes.
The compiled one
public.
is the one that we work off of
Public for 14.
Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay.
And there's a little wrinkle there, too. You can, if you got the public one, if you got the composite one in your packets, you would be able to know, well, I didn't say that, so he must have. So there still could be an issue. So you got two choices there. One is you can post the composite to the town website concurrent with you getting your packets, so it's in the public domain, or they can be held and given at the public meeting. So your choice on that.
Who's gonna hold and give them to us?
Well, you can have-
Kathy or something?
You can have Kate just send them in an envelope, sealed or something.
That's fine.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, it's really ridiculous,
okay.
but
Never like I've done one before, but
Hmm?
never helped like I've done one before, but that's fine.
And, yeah, I think
Okay.
that works, okay? So that's that. 4.3, discussion of policy/bylaw for code of conduct and social media. These were interesting. Wayne?
I've only got the chance to read through them once since I only got my packet this morning, so
Oh, okay.
there's some things that need some polishing.
So do we want to work on what,
Well,
did,
which one?
I think the social media one needs,
that's the one that needs the most work as far as I'm concerned.
There are two of those here, though, right?
Yeah.
oh, I
One
didn't even
is-
see the second one.
Yeah.
There's a sample one.
We got a sample, a couple pages after the KMP. It may be that it's, actually, it looks as though it is what the front one was based off of,
Yeah, that's probably just their
because it
little,
was a KMP one.
yeah. Could we, I'd be interested to know if there's one that Adam's firm uses as a standard one as well, just to see if there's any differences.
Because I remember
That'd be
last time I
great.
talked to him about this, he had one he just wrote from Lunenburg, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
I'm 99% sure he said that.
Not that I want to compare them, but I do.
It's the only way to get some, but
Yeah, well, if one of them has something that the other one doesn't have, you might want to combine them. For the benefit of the public, what we're trying to do is look at what policies we don't have or need to be updated, and the one that both of them concern me. Both of them need to be in place.
They do have one, they recommend. He's going to email it right now.
Oh, okay,
So it'll appear here, and I'll be able to forward it off to you.
okay. All
He said,
right.
I'm not certain how similar or dissimilar it is to
Okay.
KP's, but,
Just have another reference point, would be good.
yeah, I guess if you're gonna start digging in and making suggested edits, might as well be working off the one that's your current council's.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. But I was just going to explain why these are important. I mean, all the policies are important, but we don't have either of these. And code of conduct, I think, speaks for itself. But social media, my concern is that I realize that some of the departments actually have their own, like, Facebook page. But we don't have anything that governs the use, so that's kind of a potential liability.
Right.
Not kind of, is. So, I don't know what that means to the existing sites right now. Because if you read through this, typically when a municipality has, they put up a Facebook page for use from a department. Typically, that's under the auspices of a town manager or a town administrator, to make sure that that things are consistent, that there are things that are consistent about behavior on the site, the kinds of comments that will not be put on the site, all kinds of things for protection for everyone. And yet we haven't done that for the ones that exist. So that needs to be high on.
I'm only aware of two, police and water. Are there others?
Recreation.
Okay.
High school has some, they don't really fall under us, but
No, they don't fall under us.
I'd be interested to see what their policy says.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Um,
You grab that. It should be on their website.
So just, I want as much information about this because this is a pretty hot topic right now. For a variety of reasons, and there's a couple of things in here that aren't in here that I think should be, as far as comments, because there's the option to not have comments.
That's right.
Informational only, like Water Department
That's
does a
right.
great job. I'm gonna compliment them on their communication through that Facebook, that there is a water main break on Main Street, there's gonna be shut down, blah, blah, blah. There should be no comments on that.
Right.
So we gotta put that protection in here, because there's no need, if this is truly an informational only, or to contribute to your water department, or to your department's mission, you're just putting statements out there, basically. You're not asking for your people's feedback and stuff like that. So that's the careful part that we need to be having here, and that's what I wanted to
And that's
see.
not to say that people can't communicate. You could have like a, contact us here,
Right.
kind of
Regular
thing.
contact information through
Right.
the other.
Right.
But as long as
More
it's not,
traditional.
it's not the water department's opinion that's going out. As such,
Yeah,
so-
and then code of conduct plays into that too.
Correct, they have to match.
And from a First Amendment perspective, you can't pick and choose types of speech. So if you open it up, it's difficult to say, well, we're gonna let you guys say what you want, but we don't like what this one says, so we're gonna shut this one
Exactly,
off. And it's just a
exactly.
really
You
slippery
can't
slope.
censor some people and not others. So it's an all or nothing kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay. So you'll send us those?
Yes.
Can we put that on,
Yep. 16th.
yes, please, because we'll need that much time to look at them all. 4.4, cable contract system extension. Did we get any update yet?
Just what came in via email at the tail end of last week, which I was away, but I was still able to get the email. Give me just a minute. an email from our council to council at, actually see if he's Comcast, he is Comcast. Great speaking with you today. Attached to the documents that I have relative to the cable and the town of Townsend. The town is looking to extend service to the areas listed in the November 9th letter and is looking for assistance as to that process. Please advise as next steps become known to you. And they've set a follow-up that they're going to speak with. So I guess the update is that she has made contact with somebody finally that, not her finally, but we have finally found someone that is able to be tagged to be responsive.
Okay. So that's Kate, right?
That is Kate.
All right,
And then,
so she'll let us know, I'm sure.
And then the chair of the cable committee wrote back saying, thank you. This is the most progress we've had on the matter in years.
Wonderful, wonderful. So if you hear others, can you just recommend that it go on the next agenda or whichever agenda is appropriate? I just want to keep that in the forefront. Poor people have been waiting for a long time. Anything else on that, Wayne?
Nope.
Okay. 4.5, review job descriptions. Well, this is a continuation from our last meeting. We were talking about both the town administrator and the executive assistant, and those two job descriptions with some potential changes to them. I'm almost thinking that that's going to need, like, separate discussions outside of a regular meeting, maybe a work session.
There's two things, and it's not just these two positions. I think we need to prioritize which ones need the work first, as far as job description and potential pay grade. I'll use the town accountant as the example that we discussed in the budget meetings. One, what is truly the job description that we're looking at there, and two, what is the expected pay for that position compared to other communities, and prioritize what we do for his job descriptions from there, as well as the pay grade. So kind of tackling this as a mannered fashion, instead of saying, okay, well, this job description needs the most work, I want it done now.
Yeah. I guess, don't think it's in your report, I think. Human Resources Consultant. Did you have any luck looking into that
I
yet?
got 3 identified to send the RFP to
Okay.
from the back of the Beacon. No great effort in finding them, going to the back page of the Beacon.
Okay.
So this week we'll have that one out and the one on the
Accountant,
account
yeah.
thing.
yeah.
So to that point, I think we should, I don't want to say wait, but
I just want to make sure that we're doing these things as professionally as possible. And I started thinking about the matrix. And when did we go out to HRS?
The last time was November of 15.
I mean, we're coming to almost needing a reevaluation, I think, too.
I think what you're going to find too is that the bulk of the work that went into that matrix is no longer relevant, because a lot of the positions are now outside of it and under collective bargaining agreements. So, I mean, you can negotiate in those contracts to keep people in those grids, but you're also free under the contract to do whatever ultimately comes out at the table.
I'm not ready to do it now, not with the budgets and town meeting in front of me. It's just too big to,
I agree.
it's too big right now.
Well, you and I did have a chance to chat about this, and you know, I concede your points about needing to be very thoughtful and professional about proceeding. You know, I just want to make the point that the executive assistant one isn't one that just has come up randomly. It's one that, you know, as a board, it's been being discussed for a better part of a year, intermittently, I understand, but it's been on the agenda and in discussion with the board.
I don't remember it coming up in the last year,
Yeah.
other than a couple of weeks ago.
No, when you emailed me your drafts, we actually had discussions on.
Oh, right.
The agendas around that
Because you
time.
were going to be looking at the job description, right?
So, in furtherance of those discussions, is when I actually found the old files that showed that the position had originally been graded substantially higher than it's been classified, apparently now twice. The professional that's been paid has pegged it at a certain grade, and for whatever calculus internally, decisions were made to drop it back down to where it's been, so,
I'd kind of like to see that back up,
yeah,
please.
absolutely.
Okay. Wayne?
Yeah, I mean, this last week was the first I've really heard of it
Yeah.
or seen it. And
Yeah.
this is the first time I've read it today, so.
I mean, the thing that I feel badly about is is that we've slated that position in terms of the budget for 2020. We've slated that position as getting a COLA.
Right.
Okay, so if there's, but we can't put the cart before the horse either.
Right.
You know, I mean, the job description has to be done. So if it ends up that the job description is rewritten and it shows that it should be a higher grade than it is, which I would not doubt it would be higher,
We deal with the financing.
then we deal with the financing then,
Absolutely.
okay? I mean, I hate to put that off and do that to somebody, but on the other hand, we've got to
We spoke about that too,
be
that
methodical.
it wouldn't be appropriate to just pick some number
No.
of dollars and budget them in the off chance that the process leads to needing them. So
Yeah.
we'll take the time that it takes to do it, and
Okay, and I think a key to that is getting the consultant in, and I, for one, would like a full understanding of exactly what we're asking the consultant to do. Okay?
sure, absolutely.
Do you have the RFP ready?
I have a draft of one that I pulled off of MMA, so by the end of this week, we should have both of
Okay.
those ready to go out.
Okay, and can you share that with us as well?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay.
And the accounting one is pretty boilerplate. The HR one's gonna be a little bit more tailored to where we are.
Okay, so we're going to say, do you want to make a motion to table this until the HR consultant comes in?
I make a motion that the board tables these two topics until the HR consultant is brought on.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Board discussion and development of a list of specific expectations. This goes with that. Are we moving that one as well?
I think it would be prudent to,
I should know the answer to this question. How is it that you were on a December cycle? Did that have to do with your hire date, your original hire date, or the?
For goals and objectives,
No, for
Review.
your review.
yeah. I made the mistake of calling it goals and
Oh,
objectives,
okay.
which is not. I think it was,
It was based
I think it
on,
was budgetary. I think it was, if there was going to be a budgetary impact, you would want to know early in the budget process to be able to budget. I think it was nothing more or less than that. I know that we.
it just, how do you establish yearly goals? And when do you tend to do that? Well, when you tend to do that probably is sometime right after town meeting.
Right, when you have a newly elected board, which may or may not be a different
Exactly.
board, and then they have the ability to bring what they ran for to the table and say, these are the goals.
Well, it's not just that, but you're starting on a new year,
Right,
you
but the
know?
financial implications of your position are already defined as far as budgetary.
no,
No?
no, right now, I have
No, the only thing he has in there is.
a zero. No, I have just a zero in there now. No COLA, nothing. What my contract says is, If I'm satisfactorily evaluated, then I can get a raise, and a raise is a negotiation between us, but no less than a subordinate in the organization
Okay.
gets. But it's not nearly done.
Okay. I just want to understand it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that when we changed it to March, which we just did this current board a couple months ago, it seemed to make sense
That's
because. you know,
We
you
had
get
just done it in,
right.
what, October?
You get evaluated in March, and then there's town meeting, and then the new board comes on. You know, so maybe even pushing it to April. I know it's the height of budget and town meeting season, but it then does fall in the cycle with the very next month you get a new board, and you set them again.
Yeah, and that might make more sense.
I think so. It just doesn't match up.
You know, because you should be evaluated by the board that you worked with for the last year,
Yeah.
you know?
And you shouldn't have to get elected and be held to some other person's goals for your
Exactly.
key employee.
Exactly. Okay. So we may want to look at the timing of that, but as it turns out, it's April, right?
Yep.
So I'd like to put that off with 4.5,
I move the board.
but not necessarily tied to the HR consultant as much as tied to goals. It's specific expectations, which is tied to the job description, but it's also tied to goals. Okay, so it's together.
Okay.
Any disagreement on that?
No.
Okay. Town administrator updates and reports. What have you got?
Madam Chair, under 5.11 personnel updates, land use coordinator vacancy update, we met just a week, not even a week ago, so I do have 3 interviews this week, which I told you last week that I would be having. I told you one is an internal candidate, I believe, one is from Illinois, and one is from the Commonwealth. Each has some level of government experience dealing with land use, so I'm hopeful in that regard.
Good.
The human resource consultant, we just talked about briefly, should be the RFP prepared by the end of the week. Make certain that it's in your hands in advance of sending it off to the Central Register or the Goods and Services Bulletin for posting. Town accountant vacancy, just last night, received another applicant, and this applicant actually has some municipal experience.
How many
in
applicants
accounting.
have you gotten so far?
Less than 5.
Okay.
Yeah, less than 5. I'd have to pull a file to see exactly, but none of them had any direct experience in municipal accounting. This applicant does. Pretty decent depth of it. I'm not certain the breadth. You know, it was focused to one enterprise versus to the whole municipality. So I saw that on my phone last night at the airport, so I haven't really had a chance to dig into it too much. The interim or consulting services, again, as we spoke of moments ago, that'll be an RFP that'll be prepped to go out to the Goods and Services Bulletin by the end of the week.
And we need to do an RFP for something like that because of the amount of money? Or is it just to
Technically, you don't.
define what you want?
Yeah, technically, you don't need to for a professional service like this, but just to get a competitive price and the few agencies that are out there or groups that are out there that do this, making certain that they're giving you the best price.
Can't hurt.
Yeah.
How long does that process take?
It can take as much time or as little time as you'd like, because we're not held by statute to do it for a 30-day window or anything like that. So we can put in goods and services with a quick turnaround,
Okay.
2-week time
Okay.
time frame for them to turn it around. And again, it's a pretty finite group of entities that are going to look at this.
Because I don't think we should go for very long.
No.
I mean, if we're still doing a search, somebody needs to be sitting down there and doing the job.
And we do have Lori still coming on Fridays, and she's doing payroll and bills payable, and she's still working on reconciliations just this weekend.
Where are we at with reconciliations, do you know?
I want to say through November, things are reconciled now.
Yeah,
So-
we're gonna need some help.
I'm sure.
Have we ever entertained even if you hire a new accountant, there's not only a learning curve, but there's a catch-up period. Also having a consultant there to help out.
We did that with the treasurer. When I first started, we had just had a vacancy created in the treasurer collector's position, and we hired a consultant to come in and perform the function. And then when we had Barb Tierney come on, the consultant actually stayed for a period of time, a couple of months, I think, and did just that.
Well, I'm thinking mostly of the reconciliation.
That's what it was then.
Okay, to have somebody concentrating on that so that we're not behind.
Okay, that's what they did the last go-round.
Well, if you think that that's the thing to do, that might be the thing to do. I would be open to that.
Okay. 512, financial updates, fiscal 20 budget discussion of changes since the last meeting. I do have several things that I can bring to your attention, and I've highlighted them on this version of my budget. Executive assistant we just spoke about, so that'll sit with the 2% COLA and no additional discussion for this budget cycle. I have added into the Board of Selectmen's budget under personnel, the grant writer / grant administrator. And this is a proposed new position, and it is plugged in right now for 19 hours and at a plug rate without having been a job description approved or evaluated yet, but looking at what the market is out for other positions. So it's currently sitting in the budget at $35,000 for that part-time position. Next, there is the human resource consultant position that has been moved from where it had been as a salary down into the expense.
So it's just a move of the same one.
Yep. Next, FinCom reserve has been increased by $5,000 after our last discussion.
Kathy will be happy.
The accountant's office, we had made the adjustment for what I put in the notes as market recruitment.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yep, certainly. At the meeting a week ago, this past Saturday, the discussion at the table with members of the FinCom and yourselves was to put the figure in at 80,000.
Okay, I
And
got
to
you.
leave open the possibility of even doing some sort of an incentive on arrival.
Okay. So the salary amount
Is 80
is
now.
80 now, okay.
And the document that you got at the meeting less than a week ago there, the big book, has the majority of this stuff already in it, but we haven't publicly spoken about them yet. So that's what this is tonight. Legal has been increased to 55. I may look a little more closely at that and see what can't be squeezed a little bit differently, looking at what we're trending now.
Okay.
Then a significant change in facilities maintenance. What I've done in the expense portion of facilities maintenance is change the way the budget is laid out to mirror the QuickBooks that Carolyn actually uses at the desk for these budgets. So it's broken out by address. So one of the concerns was, we have this big number for energy, gas and electric, but there's no real understanding of how much of it is to 12 Dudley and how much to 272 Main. So all of those things are broken out. So what you'll see, and I'll
So
you-
by a line item expense?
Yep, by address, you'll see 12 Dudley with electricity, gas, water, fire alarm and extinguishing, alarm monitoring, HVAC, pest control, landscaping and fertilization, miscellaneous supplies and expense.
So under it, it's address and all of the
All
items?
those things, the
And then
the
the
dollar
next
figure, and then a
address?
subtotal.
The
and then
next address,
and the same.
okay.
So the addresses that are accounted for there are 12 Dudley, which is the Library Senior Center Meeting Hall, 272 Main Street, which is this building, 274 and 276 respectively would be the garage and the rec. 13 Elm, the now retired fire station. And the last two are relatively insignificant in terms of budget. It's a little bit of electricity, a little bit of gas, a little bit of water
For
for.
West
the,
Townsend Reading Room?
Actually, those would be next, no, for rec
Oh, okay.
and garage. And then you have Memorial Hall, which is carried separately, which is a discussion I want to have about why that is, why it's not right up in 272 Main. It's always
Why
been
isn't it?
it's always been carried as two separate budgets as far
Well,
back
that's a
as.
terrible excuse.
My favorite.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If you think it needs to change, then change it.
Well, I didn't know if anybody here is aware of any
Are we
history to it.
emotionally attached to
Yeah,
that?
I don't know, if somebody is.
I'm not, are you?
It's the same building.
Okay. So I
I'll
can-
go with your
I'll
recommendation
roll-
on that.
Lovely, I'll roll those back up. And next is in police. The contract raise was shown, so it looks like there's a salary adjustment when you look at the police operations line. What I wasn't catching is the fact that just because there's a raise, it shows there because there was a contract done. It didn't contemplate the 2% that's been plugged for everybody else. So I've added that now. So there is the 2% now for
For
the police.
2020.
For 2020, correct.
Okay, because that's the one to be negotiated.
Correct. Doesn't mean that people are getting it, just means that it's at least.
Good
being
catch.
identified. And I also hit the overtime and holiday lines because those run from the rate. Next isn't going to be until education, which is big news. I don't know, Sue, if you want to chat about having been there last night.
I was there last night. Gratefully, and I expressed it to them after the meeting, we're grateful that they did come back with quite a few cuts. I didn't write it down, but it was substantial, $470,000.
Yeah.
They cut from their budget. We knew that it was going to help us. It was actually, I think you have the assessment numbers, but, so they made cuts. They also, at the same meeting, voted on the bus contract, which is a 20% increase over 5 years, over 3 years, I'm sorry. Talked a little bit about that whole difficult situation. And I think they got away without having to directly impact teaching staff. Maybe there was one position, I was not clear, and they weren't specific because when it comes to cutting and moving people around, it affects people's jobs, and they had not had the discussion prior to the vote. So I think he was going to release that information today or tomorrow. So that's a good thing. But they're, they have a huge budget, and it's mostly people. But we do appreciate what they've done to try to meet our needs, not us as much as Pepperell.
So what is our assessment going to be?
Jim has
So
the numbers.
the initial numbers, you remember, we were looking at an assessment increase of 1.1 million, or a little over 10%. Collectively, the select board and the FinCom held a hard line at the $500,000. That's it. It was 4.74%. They came in after their vote last night with 3.8% which is an increase in assessment for us of $401,023. So saved on that alone from the 500 hard line, another 99,000 and change.
So call it 100.
Yeah, from which some things that I've already referenced, the grant position, 35,000, and a little better accounting on some of the utilities when it was all broken out and actually seen.
So we're balanced now.
Well, we were balanced on the number from last week because
Just take the 50.
we made the decision to take the 50 that we were out of balance on and just take it from the school.
Knowing that
Okay?
it was coming down.
Knowing that it was coming down anyway. As it turned out, it came down, not just that 50, but an additional 49.
So the 100 that we picked up in last night
Was-
cleared the $50,000, roughly $54,000 that we were in deficit, and then allowed for the $35,000 grant writer, grant administrator position, and like the 2% in the police that I picked up, and a couple other small things.
And that granted, do you want to talk about that grant administrator position,
Yeah.
how that's going to work?
Sure. This actually spun out of some discussion about admin support positions. And the end of the discussion was that the town would benefit from having a grant writer, grant administrator position. The calculus in putting it in the Board of Selectmen's office is just to make certain that the person is not swamped and run out of town, never to come back after the first day. Because if they're off on their own somewhere, it's going to be easy for every department to believe that they own a piece of that person, instead of having some protection, some gatekeeping and prioritization based on the board's stated goals from year to year. So if the board has a goal about, open space, then the grant writer knows that one of the marching orders from above is to work on grants for open space. It's part-time right now. It is funded from within the budget this year, but the understanding going forward would be that the position would be self-funded. So if a grant comes in for $350,000 with 10% admin, that person's covered then, that 35,000 is covered.
I know we had some discussion about whether that would be forget how we phrased it. Basically getting a part of, if they're generating grants, the position is fulfilled. So say we're funding it for 35,000, right?
Yeah.
So you would expect at least 35,000 in grants per year.
Actually,
It'd be more than that,
You'd expect
actually.
the admin portion that we're able to fund that person with to be at least 35.
Correct.
So, they get a $350,000 grant with 10% allowed for admin, they're covered.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
pointing out.
So really what you're saying is your goal, based on what you're getting paid, is to bring in a minimum of 35.
Right, on admin.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want everybody to be clear, that's what the goal is, not just to fund another position. This is to save us
Yeah, the
money.
idea is to make it
Just
self-supporting.
to leverage.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it puts the town at an advantage. That was a good session that we had, that
It was.
that brainstorming through that stuff. I like that.
Next, cemetery and parks superintendent changed the figure to match what was voted for the reclassification at the last meeting a week ago. And flag committee, I don't recall if we discussed the fact that it is its own budget now, as a standalone budget inside of culture and recreation.
Yep.
And those are the changes. With that, we are, without having gone back to look at revenues, which is always the last resort, we are at $1,248 to the good. Of the gift
1,248.
certificate.
Amazon gift card.
As long as it's not to the bad.
That's right.
Okay. Not too bad,
So a
huh?
couple things to still tighten up
Yep.
and play with a little bit, but, the vote that you set the calendar for back a number of months ago has your next meeting being the time that the final ink dry balanced budget and the book is supposed to be presented, so.
Good thing we had some extra meetings in there.
I'd have gotten there. I wouldn't have got there with all this good input, though, so that's good stuff.
Yeah. Nope. Any
All right.
comments, questions?
No, great job by everybody. I thought that was a
Yeah.
good team effort.
Yeah.
Capital plan.
You guys okay?
We're good.
All right.
Capital plan, I know that Lindsay spent a good deal of time in the office, I believe a little bit yesterday, but a good bit again today, going over the forms. My promise to you at the last meeting was that I would have those forms filled out and updated, not decisions being made, but at least populate the fields to allow for decisions to be made. And by me, I meant Carolyn.
Delegated it, did
So,
you?
I did. So Carolyn did get that done, so it'll allow the capital planning committee to make their recommended plan. You know, we do have a placeholder article. It has everything it needs except the number and the specific items. Those can be filled in between now and when we need to post the warrant.
Did everyone who put in requests have an opportunity to sit with capital planning?
My understanding is no, not yet. That's the decision-making stuff that I'm not going to involve myself with.
No, I know, but not a lot of time. Do you have any meetings scheduled?
I don't think so.
No. Yeah, I just found out on Saturday that we had a meeting for Monday, which I
Well,
was
you weren't
obviously
home then, anyway.
not gonna be able to make, so.
Maybe just a little reminder that perhaps 2 or 3 meetings need to be scheduled to make sure that, number one, you get a quorum, and number two, you get it done.
Yeah, and I think prospectively, assigning a liaison, a staff support liaison to the capital planning committee to keep the ball moving.
I think it needs to be done because it's just not,
Yeah.
administratively, just the way we've been doing meetings is not working.
Yeah.
At least for my schedule anyway.
Yeah, so I think if there's somebody that can keep the ball rolling on an administrative staff level, I think we'll be better served.
Would you, since we're talking about it, would you supply us with the bylaw, the capital planning bylaw? See if there's anything that needs to be updated in there to get us,
Because that,
More
wasn't Kate
pointy.
here for that one when we read in the bylaw that the capital planning or the town administrator could complete that piece of it? So we do have an option as written from, or as reviewed by Kate, so we don't necessarily have to wait to complete it.
If the capital planning committee does have a meeting in the next week and says, go, I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to pick up the ball and go. What I don't want to do is
usurp it.
is step in and
I
We're
understand.
not at that point yet, I don't think, but it's getting close.
Yeah, it is, because the documents all need to be done and ready for duplicating.
I'm less worried about that and more just the picks. What do you want to fund?
Okay,
Town meeting warrant discussion, pavement management bylaw. I've got a draft that I worked on this weekend out in the hinterland that I think is going to serve as a good basis. So I'm going to get that off probably by the end of the week. I'll touch it up a little bit more, get it off to Adam, have him make sure that there's nothing that falls outside of what we're supposed to do or allowed to do. And for those that aren't familiar, what we're talking about with that bylaw is something that codifies the town's promise regarding roads, what's going to be spent and how it's going to be spent going forward. So it doesn't become an afterthought or something that's subject to the whims from one board to the next. It's a commitment that the town meeting has made. Yeah, the fair summary.
Exactly what I wanted to hear.
I'll get to the actual plan in the next bullet here, but funding sources for the proposed financial articles. I do have, I think it's on the printer, so I can just take a quick run and grab it.
Sure. Okay. They fixed it. The elves came in and fixed the printer.
Adam was just walking out when I walked out there, and he goes, "Do you need me?" So looking at this, left-hand column, the warrants articles, so special town meeting 1 through 8. The annual town meeting articles are not numbered yet, so they don't have the numbers on them. Then there's a description of what the ask is about, and then the amount and from what fund it's coming, and the funds are across the top. Free cash, capital stabilization, recreation, overlay surplus, stabilization, excise receipts, and cemetery receipts. So, starting with the free cash column, we currently have $640,005.23 in free cash. Everybody see that? There would be the snow and ice estimate. We're not near that yet, but that's a conservative estimate, $150,000. Legal, $15,000. FinCom, I think 15 is what the minimum.
And this is out of the special for this fiscal year, correct?
And that'd likely be just Joe, right, for replenishing FinCom. And then line painting, $9,500. Council on Aging equipment, $9,500. Board of Health wood,
The chipping
wood
thing?
and debris, yep, that's $10,000. And keeping in the free cash column, getting into the annual town meeting, into capital stabilization, $100,000. So you'll note there that it shows as in the very next column as a positive going in, so it's increasing the balance. Pavement management plan, $250,000. 300th anniversary, $5,000, and stabilization proper, $50,000. That would leave a balance of $26,005.23, if all of those were to go as they're currently laid out.
So I have a question.
Yep.
We haven't discussed all of these. Board of Health hasn't explained the,
Understood.
Shipping.
This is just what exists
okay,
that came in the gate and where it would likely be
Okay.
funded if it were to happen.
okay,
None of these are real. This is just where it would line up or shake out.
okay.
So cap stabilization, we currently have $133,664. This contemplates putting in 100 and then taking out 200, which has been about what the annual has been. That would leave a balance of $33,664 for beginning of next year. Recreation, $30,000 for grant proposal. Again, this hasn't been discussed yet, but if it were to pass. Overlay surplus, $20,000. That would be to do assessor's cyclical inspection work. I talked with Vicki today. The original ask was for 10. She believes that they'll have 20 in overlay surplus, and she'd prefer to be able to get the full 20 to be able to do more work. A quick commercial on what overlay surplus means. Every year in the budget, we hold back a certain amount of money as overlay in case somebody challenges their taxes and they prevail, and we have to reduce a tax bill. That would leave a hole in our revenue, so we appropriate an amount of money in case that happens that we can use to backfill any of those holes. At the end of the year, whatever is left becomes overlay surplus, and after it sits for 3 years, it's able to be reappropriated by vote of the Board of Assessors. It then becomes an available revenue that town meeting could use. So given that that is assessors' work, assessors' accounts, the thought has been, at least since I've been here, that when the assessors have an ask, that that's an appropriate place to look for it. Next, you see stabilization. We currently have a balance of $1,295,010, and this contemplates putting $50,000. Obviously, somewhat of a token, but consistent with what we've said each of the last couple town meetings, putting something in each year is better than not, and far better than drawing out.
And what does that come out to be as a percentage of the whole?
Oh, goodness.
About-
Well, we know one, it's gonna be close to 7%. Yeah. Yeah. Excise receipts, we left $50,000 of excise receipts on the table in the revenue expense sheet. You'll remember, at the very bottom category where we showed overlay surplus, we also showed $50,000 from excise for funding the first installment of the pavement management plan. So next year's budget, we would have $100,000 showing there. And over the course of 5 years, we'd get up to 250, and each year thereafter, that 250 would be earmarked. That would be part of the bylaw that we were discussing moments ago. So you marry that 250 against the 250 free cash, and the roughly 500,000 in Chapter 90 gets us our $1 million annual for ongoing maintenance. And that does it. Those are the financial articles.
You guys need a copy of that?
I do have some extra copies.
Thank you.
And that's only as good as town meeting decides to say yes or no.
What budget are you working on now? Is it still 30 or we have to, oh my goodness.
34. 34. I don't know how I got from 32 to 34. I can't find 33, but
Can you make me a copy of that?
actually, a hard copy, not an email, right?
Hard copy,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last year, FinCom came to one of our meetings and we went and voted our recommendation on all the articles. When is that scheduled to happen?
It's not currently scheduled.
When do you think it should be?
Well, the warrant, probably the 16th, meeting of the 16th. The warrant's going to be finalized, budget will be finalized, but we won't yet have posted or printed.
Okay, so for the things that we have not discussed yet, for example, the
Rec-
chipping.
Chipping or the recreation are two big ones. Invite in on the 6th for discussion, and then votes on the,
The 6th?
not the 6th, the 2nd, and then votes on the 16th.
So if the FinCom wants
This one.
Jerry and Joe, if we invite them to come in to talk about their proposed articles for next week,
Yeah.
all right, would you, in case you guys want to go, if you could let your committee know. Okay, so we're all hearing it at the same time.
So then
We
we
plan
get,
on voting on it the following week.
then we get to miscellaneous updates, the first of which is pavement management plan. There's a document that I handed to you tonight, and I just gave a copy to Joe and Jerry Lynn. What you're looking at is an overview of what pavement management approach is,
Seen this a couple times.
what it means. Summary of findings on the third page in. We actually, since this was done 2 years ago, have decreased, even though we have done a number of roads. We're not keeping up, which I think is no surprise to anybody.
Yeah.
So we went from a 58.51 rating out of 100 to a 57.1. That's as of this month. The total backlog, if every single road was done, in order to get to that total 100 rating, is $15.1 million. When you get to the next page,
Help me understand that, please.
and they are going to come in at your next meeting and do a presentation
Oh,
on
we
this.
don't have much on that agenda, do we?
But I think it's going to be good for you to be able to ask them
Okay.
specific questions.
So just review this and be ready.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just want to kind of give the high point.
Okay.
That it does get on the very back, There's a page 1 of 1, which is pavement management program, which gets to 4.9 million.
Okay.
And what follows are 6 pages that list the roads and the type of treatment, and from what cross street to what cross street
The roads for what time
for
period?
this $4.9 million. So if you look on page 1 of 6, you'll see, for instance, Madison Ave, at Warren Road, cul-de-sac, crack sealing, and it's $528. I mean, so you go from everything from full depth reclamation to crack sealing. So you're not just coming in and repaving.
How many roads do we have?
80-some miles, you
Yeah,
said, was in there?
yeah.
No, how many
80
roads?
miles, but I don't know how many roads. So this is a document that the consultant came up with using the formula and the program that they have in terms of saving what we've got, preserving what we've got, and getting after the things that can't be preserved and need to be fully redone. So
But these don't happen in the first year.
this would be a 3-year cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
Up there.
Where, I mean, I know it's a time thing, but,
Also for 2019, they'd start with these,
oh, okay.
and then get.
So it's
Page
prioritized.
3 of 6 goes to
Gotcha.
2020, all the way through. So this gets to that $5 million number. It includes, when you look, more than we've talked about including. This includes the repair itself, police, contingency, and the total. So you're carrying a good number here.
And if we adopt this plan, this is the independent
This is,
recommendation, there's
this is the machine that's been built by smart people that don't have a stake on a given address.
It's called blind.
I just want to make that clear that.
Justice
this
is
wasn't
blind.
picked by
No.
any of us, or highway, or.
No, this is all based on the criteria and the, how much traffic a road gets, how bad it is, what it needs, regardless of who lives there.
Right, and there may be some that might not make sense when you look at it, because, well, why are we going to level, why are we gonna level and overlay that street that gets very little traffic? And what they'll tell you when they come and make their presentation is, because right now it's got a crack down the middle, and for
And if
short
you
money.
don't take care
right,
of that-
For short money, we can do a little bit of work on it, because if we don't, that number's going backwards again, and we're gonna be at, doing a full.
So it's important to realize that it's not just a repair project, it's a maintenance and preventative project as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so an example like you used is to prevent us from having to spend lots of money to bring it all the way down to nothing.
Right.
Fix that crack, because that's going to extend the life of that road.
Yep. So,
Nice, glad.
The document that I shared with you at the last meeting, I think I had run the table at 4.5 million at 10 years at 2.5% or 2%, I don't recall. And it came up to, for a $260,000 home, I think $30 a quarter or something like that. So obviously that number would flex a little bit, given this is 5 million. Having said that, I believe that while this says 5 million, we're gonna get it done for less, because the rates that they're using, which are their rates that they use standard across the state, are higher than the rates that we have contracted currently with the company that we have contracted with for a 3-year period.
Good.
So I think we'll either do it for less or get a little bit more done.
Is there anything that Jim or his staff needs? They're not gonna be doing all of this, but they'll certainly be working with and overseeing.
Correct.
Is there anything that they need that we have not taken into consideration in this budget?
I don't believe so, because this does have the contingencies and the police and everything worked in.
Okay.
I mean, next week with the presentation, Jim will be here as well. So
Okay.
we can make certain to ask directly if there's something.
Jerry?
I don't believe all the streets are on there.
That's why I asked how, if all the streets,
Every street in
how
town?
many streets we have.
No, they're not. No, to do every street in town would be 15,
Did they take a ride up? Do they actually ride around and take up?
yeah, this
Well,
is,
They obviously didn't take a ride up my street, which is Highland. It's disgusting.
is Highland on here. See, I've intentionally not looked at the
At
streets that are
anything, I
selected.
I
know.
don't even want to look at that right now.
I can,
And that's used by,
So this is that's why I asked how many roads are there? Because it didn't seem like that many.
But again, this is just to get us up to the 75, not 100.
That's right, that's true.
So you're not
Okay,
going to get 100.
yep.
well, you will for $15 million.
So that's the next phase, is the next 3 years after that with the bylaw to
Right.
do this again.
Well, not necessarily do this again, but to hopefully have enough money to start paying attention to all of
That's what I
them,
mean.
the ones that aren't covered.
Now we're at
In the
75,
initial
what's the
one.
next plan?
But meanwhile, we've got the Chapter 90 coming in too.
You'll have that million a year. I mean, it's not gonna be a million this year because we're doing the first 50.
Right.
So it'll be 800. So in addition to what's being asked on the debt exclusion side, there is that ongoing regular.
Which
income money
means if other roads need to get
added.
added, they can get added.
Correct.
okay.
I don't understand, we'll have to ask next week when he comes in.
It's like a major highway, Highland Street.
Sometimes it is. It's a cut-through road.
Dates for special election for debt exclusion, we already addressed, June 18th, which would afford us the 10 days for printing and the 21 days advance for absentee ballots, which would still leave a grace window of about a week. Recreation use of the backfield, that'll be held off until next meeting. We're gonna have them come in on their article. And that's what I have for you.
Unregistered motor vehicles,
Yeah, that was under your board correspondence.
that's right.
Yeah, but I can hit it now if you'd like.
That's all right. We'll wait. 5.2, Board of Selectmen announcements and updates. Unregistered motor vehicles.
Actually, correspondence is what you said.
I know.
All right, unregistered motor vehicles. We've got two.
Because I got correspondence.
We've got two ongoing. One that we received an email just the day before yesterday, it looks, yesterday.
Yesterday.
From a neighbor who has been more than patient in trying to work with us. And this is 89 Wallace Hill Road. The board had an initial order sent out, heard back from the tenants that they would benefit from a 30-day extension to be able to get things done. There were certain commitments made that would be met within that 30 days, and they've not been met. I can't say that an effort hasn't been made, but they haven't accomplished what they said they could accomplish within 30 days. That then puts $100 per day fine under non-criminal disposition, the first packet of which will be going out this week.
And that goes to the owner of the property.
Goes to the owner of the property. And in working with town council on this matter, it would be once a week, pick a day, Friday, another stack of 7 individual non-disposition tickets would be delivered to the property in the name of the owner. So I don't think this is your choice or you want to be here.
Just trying to fulfill the bylaw.
Right, and I think you've walked a fine line between being responsive to the neighbor, true to the bylaw, but also having some compassion for the folks that are there. But I think that's run out.
I just want to, I'd like you to address something, if you would. One of the comments that, or suggestions that the person made was, can't we go in there with a tow truck? And we can't go on people's private property and do anything. We don't have the authority to do that, so.
It's private property. We do have this bylaw, and, it's the first time that I can see in the files where we've actually
Pushed it to this
gonna
point,
be
yeah.
going to this level and
Yeah.
actually following through.
Yeah,
The other non-criminal disposition bylaw, unregistered motor vehicle bylaw, the report from the chief is that about 8 vehicles have been removed, and
Good.
they're continuing to move forward with that. And that one had been
Excellent.
left with, knowing that there are a good number of vehicles there that have been there for a long time, that as long as progress is being made, and it'll continue to be monitored by the chief.
yeah, there was a lot there, and as long as there's something going on, I'm happy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you mind following up? Did I forward that to you? I did.
I was copied on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you
I will.
follow up, please? You got anything, Wayne?
I have correspondence as well. And I'm going to be one of the correspondents.
Oh, okay.
School resource officer, it came to my attention last week that Officer Francis has been out. And I don't see a plan, or I'd like to see a plan from the police chief to staff that position, either by detail or what's the plan? Is Officer Francis coming back to that position? Because having witnessed this firsthand this last week, that school needs a school resource officer, and the kids need it.
I can tell you that the officer was injured.
Okay.
And is slated to be back to full duty with full clearance less than a week from now,
Okay.
April 1st. The chief advises that he, the deputy, and on-duty officers have been stopping by, but you're right, that's not the full-time presence that is required while Officer Francis has been out. The situation is exacerbated by the fact that we are down, the number of officers that we're down.
And it is my understanding, if I read the state bylaw or state law, that if there is a funded position and it's unable to be filled, the state police will provide a detail for that.
Yeah, I don't think that that's correct.
I would like to explore it, though.
Yeah, no,
Because, again, I'm going to reiterate that it's needed.
I don't think anyone's debating that it's needed.
But I want creative ways to fund it, or to supply it, because Pepperell has a stake in this as well as Ashby, so I think between the 3 towns, there should be some sort of way to take a look at it, whether it be reserve officers, something.
Sure. I'd be happy to have an offline discussion with you about it, to then reconfirm all the information online, have the chief, the deputy, come to the next meeting and speak to some of the issues. We went down this road a little bit ago about what the statute says and whether it applies in a community that has got a school resource officer that is funded locally versus funded by a grant. Mm-hmm. And when they're funded by a grant, those are operative provisions. I believe what we found is, because we're funding it locally, the whole thing about the notification of the state police does not apply. I stand to be corrected, but that's my recollection.
But isn't that subject to the MOU that you have with the school as well? I mean, we signed an agreement initially with the schools, and what we were going to provide. Was none of that addressed in there? I mean, like, in case of absence of the
People get hurt.
officer,
I mean,
how
people
would-
get hurt. I
how
get-
would
I
we
get it.
fill in,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah, I can say that.
Or that we're
the one thing-
obligated to do that?
I can say the one thing that is of paramount importance, and I think is expressed in the agreement, is that public safety, in the traditional sense, takes precedence, that this is an assignment function for an officer, but if we are shifted to provide general public safety, that would be what would be done first.
I don't know if I like that, though.
Well, And that's,
I mean,
and
it's
that's
a
where
matter of-
it's a crapshoot, because if, you know, the expectation is that there are gonna be, you know, 2 vehicles staffed per shift at any given time, and we don't staff one of them because we're down 3 spots, and we've crushed the overtime budget as a result, and somebody gets injured, so we take a car off the road to put the school resource officer in. I mean, that's going to make somebody at the school happy, but the person who needs service in town that day that doesn't get it the way they expect is then on the displeased end of it. But again, this is something that is a little, I'm not the subject matter expert. I can have the chief and the deputy chief come in at the next meeting and discuss it, but.
I'd like it
for the-
sooner than later.
Yeah, for the immediate, the response is April 1st, Officer Francis is back with full clearance.
Okay.
Put that on for Tuesday then, please.
Gotcha.
We've got to have a way to figure that.
It can't keep
That
happening
out.
because it's the 3rd year in a row it's been up and down, up and down, up and down. We can't, we have to have a plan for that. If it's a separate position that we have to, that the school is paying for, it shouldn't be coming out of the police operating budget. It should be a standalone position as far as I'm concerned.
Well, we've already got a revolving fund set up for it.
Right. So how do we staff it now?
Well, right now, it's an assignment by the police chief.
Well, it is a sworn.
Just like all of the
It's
other
a sworn patrol position, union position. First and foremost, that's the box that we're in. How it's funded is not relevant to the controlling nature of the union contract. The union contract, which is now open and you have a fair hand at expressing yourselves on, has a lot of these details in it. So if you feel particularly strongly about some of that, make certain that when we sit down to go over what your hot button issues are for the contract, that's on the top of the list.
Fair warning, it will be one of mine.
Sure.
I don't know, it's like, okay, so if something happened, God forbid,
That's what you're faced with when you're down. I mean, we had one person that we finally brought through the academy all the way and was almost completed his field training, which is when he has to ride along. And off duty on a weekend, away from here, broke his ankle. So, I mean, that's nothing that you can contingency plan for when you've also got 2 other people running through the academy. You know, one thing that Deputy Chief said to me that resonated, he said, it would be easy to fill these positions quickly, but poorly. You know, you've got to invest in the right candidates, and that takes time.
And part of that also, I know we've discussed at certain points, is the sign-on bonus or experience retention or something creative like that. I don't want to wait for that anymore.
Yeah, well, contract's wide open.
So that's.
I got the notice from AFSCME Thursday or Friday when I was off. It popped through as an email looking to set up dates to begin with the police. I responded back that we've not yet had the meeting that Sue and I have been talking about kind of broad parameters
all
for
right,
what
well,
the board wants.
we have executive session to talk about strategy in reference to all of the contracts on Thursday, okay? So we can talk a little bit more there,
Okay.
okay?
Fine with that.
As to what, overall, what we're trying to do, okay? Understand, though, the contracts aren't up until July 1, right?
But they can begin
We can
in
begin.
March.
Okay. That's good. What was your response to the union?
I said that we hadn't yet had the meeting
Okay.
to lay out the parameters.
Okay.
But that was scheduled.
Okay, all right. Okay, anything else? We did announcements. Do we have
There's
announcements?
nothing in my packet.
Okay. There was something from Comcast,
Oh, not sure.
and I wish I totally understood it. They gave us some money, basically. Okay, they gave us what they owed us. However, the part that intrigued me was, also enclosed is information regarding our Internet Essentials program, which provides access to low-cost broadband service for $9.95 a month, no activation fees and no equipment rental fees. The option to purchase a low-cost computer at initial enrollment for just $150, and free digital literacy training available in print, online, and in person to families with children eligible for the National School Lunch Program, the free and reduced program, or receiving HUD housing assistance. Do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or want additional information. And this is signed Robert Sullivan, Senior Manager, Government and Regulatory Affairs. And there is a flyer, if you will. Perhaps we could put this out on
I
our...
think it is.
Oh, did Carolyn
If
put
it's
it
not
out
yet, I
there?
know that it-
Okay,
the
good.
intention is that it's going to
This,
To that point, if it's on the website, chances are that these people don't have a computer already.
that's true.
Can we post it at the library, the senior center,
Yep.
the high school?
Could we send it to, well,
The high school should have a copy of, should have available.
well, high school for Townsend. The problem is that Comcast doesn't cover
Pepperell.
Pepperell, okay? So certainly to the schools in Townsend
And
as
library
well.
and senior
And
center,
the library, okay? Because I would
Over
hate...
at Atwood.
I would hate for people who, they're low income to start with. This is a great deal for them, as long as they're in one of the areas where we have cable. I couldn't resist it, I'm sorry. It's getting late. 5-5,
I move the board review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants out of session.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We adjourned at finally a decent hour, 7:40.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.